And we're back with the Psalms. And today, the Psalms that we're reading or we've read, which I will be sharing lessons from, are the Psalms of Asaph. So Psalms 73, 77, and 78. 73 talks about the tragedy of the wicked and the blessedness of trusting in God. So humans are prone to weaknesses, and in verse 2, the psalmist shares how his feet nearly slipped for envying the arrogant and wicked. When he saw their prosperity, he felt cheated and he felt, angry at them, and he actually was very honest about his feelings toward the wicked. The wicked never seemed to suffer for their wrongdoing, and life didn't seem fair. In verse 15 to 17, he reflected on the viewpoint of faith as he entered into the sanctuary and worshipped God. He put life in perspective and realized that the wicked indeed had a devastating end ahead of them. Now, this was after he had gone on for many verses, bemoaning his faith as compared to the wicked. He resorted instead to praise instead of lamentation, instead of lamenting his faith and comparing himself with the wicked. And he concluded by expressing his dependence on God and acknowledging his need for a nearness, a closeness to God to change his heart. And I think that this is very valuable lessons for us to learn in this age that we live in, the social media age, where you go online and see everyone's life, and you are always prone to comparing yourself and thinking, oh, but this person is this, I deserve that. Do like the psalmist and just acknowledge God, and the closeness to him is what makes the difference. In 77, the psalmist wondered where God was in his difficulties. Often, like we tend to do as human beings, every time that we go through a difficult situation, we believe that God has abandoned us. But he remembered the past goodness of God, and that gave him hope for the future. He meditated on and he talked about how God works and his past works, and focusing on the greatness of God, and that helped him remember that God is the only true God, right? Having faith in God enables us to see things in a proper perspective. He recalled how God led the Israelites out of Egypt in their multitudes through Moses and Aaron. And obviously this is a descendant of that generation. So imagine reflecting on some of the stories that your parents told you about God. I mean, it has even that much more impact. So that was really powerful. And in the final Psalm 78, now for this one, this was like a history lesson of the Israelites and their experiences with God. The poet was speaking to his generation and calling them to learn from the mistakes of Israel's forefathers, from the people of the past. Recalling the mighty acts of the Lord, he told of God's kindness to the rebellious children of Israel, and he was detailing their disobedience, even in the face of the mighty acts that God was performing for them back then, in Exodus, and in the Exodus of Egypt, taking them out of Egypt. And he took them through the wilderness, provided for them, protected them, all his great acts that he did with love, but then they responded with faithlessness and ingratitude. So he was calling on them to not be like their forefathers who were speaking against God, doubting him, and then eventually turned to idolatry. The rebellion of the people against God in spite of his abundant mercy is a great mystery. Right, and one that even till today we can't still figure it out, because I know for everyone who reads those books are like, how can you do that to a God that was so good to you? But to be honest, I think we're guilty of the same thing even now. So when they had angered God and he arose and he acted, he still beat back their enemies and chose David from the tribe of Judah. In verse 70 to 72, he took them from, I can't see what this is. He took them from tending sheep to be the shepherd of his people, which he did with integrity. So, I mean, I've said this over and over again. I mean, this is one lesson that really resonates through so far what we've read in these Old Testament books, is how God didn't treat the Israelites as they deserved. That even though they did turn away, he knew what they were going to do. He still held on to his word. And here's the hashtag, my hashtag getting to know God's lesson for today. Focusing on God is important in order to see him correctly and to grow your faith in his ability to save, and also grow your faith in God's love for you and for me. In all three Psalms, we see how the psalmist's focus depended on their determined their view of God. So depending on what they were focusing on, that was how they saw God. When he compared himself to the wicked in 73, it caused him to question God's goodness. In 77, he focused on his struggles, which skewed his view until he repented and focused on faith. In 78, the Israelites were focused on idols, but the poet encouraged them to see God for who he is and who he has always been to them, and we should too. So today, I guess the call is to, change your focus, or, refocus if you need to, and see God as he truly is. Thank you for sharing these lessons with me today, and tomorrow we'll be back to First Chronicles, and I will be sharing lessons from First Chronicles 6, and I look forward to seeing you. Have a wonderful day. Bye.